How's it going, everyone? Welcome into GDT Live today. And today we got Barstool Chief joining us. Looking forward to seeing him on the show. He has just joined now, actually. So I will bring Chief on, and we'll get right into the Blackhawks talk. How's it
Oh,
going, Chief?
it's going all right. These lights are a little bit crazy. Give me 1 second to see if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
no
fix
worries.
that. All right, that's better.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to do it.
I've always wanted to kind of chat with you about the Blackhawks and all that stuff. So I wanted to dive into the dynasty era a little bit
Hmm.
and kind of chat about that, what it was like for you to grow up and watch that type of hockey. So let's start with your identity at Barstool though, and how you kind of got into the Blackhawks.
It's it, it's kind of linked. So uh, I went to Lake Forest College. It's like an hour north of Chicago, and for whatever reason, a really big chunk of that student population is from New England. And so my best friend was from outside of Boston. He turned me on to Barstool. So I always just read it because I thought Portnoy was hilarious. This is back in like 2005, 2006, something like that. And it was when Dave would just put the PDF of the newspaper on a website every couple of weeks. But it was not a blog at that point. It was just, an internet newspaper.
Yeah.
And so, I've been a fan for 20 years of Barstool. And when they announced that they were coming to Chicago, I emailed uh, Portnoy, the guy that he initially hired before Big Cat. His name was Neil. And then they fired me before I wrote anything because this was during the lockout. And I'm like, well, it's like the old Kramer from Seinfeld. I'm like, I don't even really work here. And so I had graduated college at that point. This is like 2012. And then Neil had moved on, and I said, because I was brought on to be the Blackhawks guy.
Hmm.
And so right before the playoffs in 2013, I emailed Big Cat and was like, hey, like, you should have a hockey guy for this team. Like, they were awesome. They had won like 25 in a row or 28 in a row or whatever it was to start that lockout shortened season. And he said, all right, yeah, you can have like a 2-week tryout. And if people like you, you can stay. Um, and that's kind of the origin story. So I blogged the Blackhawks all through that 2013 run. And then I was just a blogger for 5 years. The majority of that time, unpaid, just doing it for fun because I liked it. And it was like an interesting way to kind of stay involved with hockey because I had played my whole life and, wasn't obviously doing that anymore. Didn't make the NHL. So, it was like a fun opportunity. And then we started that podcast in 2018. And then Portnoy made us an offer to go full time. My first day full time was the Winter Classic at Notre Dame Stadium, Blackhawks Bruins. So that was our first day of full time, and been just trying to do the best I can kind of since then. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. What
yeah,
a story.
yeah. But I
Uh,
grew up a Blackhawks fan.
yeah.
We live in St. Charles, so when I was a kid, I loved Roenick, I loved DeMonte, Steve Sullivan, because I didn't grow until I was 17, so I always had an affection for the smaller guys. So Steve Sullivan was definitely one of my guys, and then Chelios, obviously, and so I've always been a Blackhawks fan. And then obviously those glory days were something else.
Let's kind of go to those glory days. What do you remember most about the first Stanley Cup in 2010?
That was probably my favorite team because that was when you had the big rivalry with the Canucks too.
Hmm.
And so you had like these great, like, they played in the playoffs 3 years in a row, 9, 10, and 11. The Hawks won the first two. And that team, that 2010 team, could just play any way you wanted. You want to go make it a track meet, we got you. You want to slug it out, make it a fight, we got you. And that team could just do anything. And they had all these great players, Troy Brower and Dustin Bufflin, and that were like ancillary players, especially Bufflin, like moved on. He was a forward for the most part for the Blackhawks, and moved to, when he made the move to Winnipeg, D was always his preferred and natural position. He became a star. He was an all-star. And so like they had like all of these kind of role players, and even the role players were awesome, and they had big moments and big personalities. And that was the thing. Like, it was just, I always say really about that whole run that they were the best team, but they also played the most attractive style. So they were fun to watch. And it's like, before, like, I grew up in, the 90s and 2000s. It was like the New Jersey Devils won a lot of cups, but you didn't really want to watch them play, at the left wing lock. And so the Hawks were, they had all the skill, they had toughness, they had everything you could ever want in a hockey team. And we got to have them right here in Chicago. And it was awesome.
Did you go to the parade?
I never did. I'm not a big crowds guy. I'm not a big parade guy, but Scott Darling and I, one of my former teammates that I went to a prep school for hockey in New England. And so one of my former teammates was really, like, Scott was his best man at his wedding. So I knew Scott. And so I didn't go to the parade, but I got to be on like the party bus. And I had gotten to know Sharp a little bit too. So like, that was the thing with Barstool. Like, those guys always loved us. And so when I wasn't getting paid in 2015, but there were some great perks, and I got to like carry the cup out of the bar, and I was on the party bus and spraying champagne. So I didn't do the parade, but I did, I would say, something a lot better than that. So but that was that was a great run from, call it 09 to 15, and even 16 when Kane won the Hart and they got knocked out by St. Louis. But that run was just so special.
What about Patrick Kane was so fun to like watch? Like, what made him just that player that everybody wanted to watch and everybody wanted to be?
Well, he was so creative and so skilled, and all that stuff was obvious from the time that I remember watching him at the World Junior and being like, we got to get this guy somehow. And because he just popped on screen. Like, I didn't, this is like 2000, this would have been 2006. And it's not like the World Junior did not have the distribution, and like wasn't as readily available to fans in this like internet era, NHL network era, as it is now. But it was on, but I didn't know anything really about the London Knights. Like, it's just like, it was early internet. Like, you just didn't really know what was going on, but he popped on screen. So it's like, this guy's incredible. But he just had such a swagger about him too. Like, he was kind of like a fearless player. He would try anything, the spinoramas, the backhands, and no looks. And then my favorite thing about him on the ice was when the lights got brightest, that's when he was at his best. And you think of all the big goals he had, obviously the cup winning one against the Flyers, where he gets on the half wall and just kind of like he wanted it. Like, he wanted the puck on his stick, the Showtime, the heartbreaker, Selly against the Kings. And I talked about that Vancouver series, the hat trick in Game 6 in 09, when nobody thought the Blackhawks were ready to beat. That was a really good Canucks team. Nobody thought the Hawks were going to be able to beat them, and Kane just took over and stepped on their throat. And they had been talking about how, he was a power play guy and we don't really have to worry about him 5-on-5, and he just shoved it right back down their throat. So that was my favorite thing. It was just like, you knew when the chips were down, throw 88 out there, he's gonna make it happen.
What do you think? What's one memory from the Kane and Taves era that you always think about? Is there a memory you kind of think about most? I mean,
like
the three cups probably, but like a moment, yeah.
So there's so many, right? There's so many moments, and it's like the ones you think about. For me, for Johnny, was he was hurt at the start of his rookie year. So he came in like maybe a month later, and his first game was against Colorado. And it still might have been like the prettiest goal of his career. But he kind of like just weaved in, dangled a few guys, great tuck around the goalie. And it was like, oh my God. Because it was like this guy, like we already had seen Patrick Kane for, 8 games, 10 games, something like that.
Mhm.
And then Taves comes in, and Taves was, Kane was the number 1 pick, but Taves was, I don't know, I guess they were sort of equally celebrated, but they came in the same time. So it was like that goal, like right off the bat, you're like, oh, and then Taves had his moments in the World Junior in the shootout against the United
Right.
States too. And it was like, I can't believe we got both of these guys. So that one, I remember they lost game 7 in 11 against Vancouver, but he had this incredible goal where he split the D to tie the game at 1 late. He had the game winner in overtime against St. Louis. And like a little thing that I feel like doesn't get talked about as much, it's all regular season stuff. We had like maybe the greatest 1-2 punch and shootouts of all time, because Taves
Mhm.
was awesome at it. He had that little silky, he would always seem to go 5-hole. Kane would like rupture goalies' groins with his little deeks in his hands, and so like they're wildly different. But it was like, all right, we're up 2-0. Like, good luck. Like it's just like we have 2 on the board before we even started in the shootout. But Taves with the competitiveness and every situation, that was like he was dominant at the faceoff circle. Was great defensively. He was a point per game guy most years. Like he was an awesome player. Another guy who always came through when like we really needed. Kane was in studio with us last week.
Mhm.
We were talking about that game 7 against Anaheim in 15 of the conference final, where it's just like, they had the line. Anaheim was like, no, Ryan Kessler specifically, no team can withstand this many hits. And they were, burying our D on the forecheck, and you get to game 7 and bang, bang, right off like the first period, Taves has 2. And it's like, all right, like our leader's stepping up. And there's a million moments. Those are a few that have come to my mind. But Kane, and I used to love the way that Kane tortured the Minnesota Wild. Like he was like a cat playing with his food against the Minnesota Wild, and it was just he killed those guys in the playoffs. They beat the Wild, I think, 3 years in a row in the playoffs, and barely ever broke a sweat.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of Taves returning?
I was surprised because
Yeah.
he's had all these weird kind of health issues, and then he pops up. You don't hear, like, he lives in Chicago, but you never hear about him or see about him. He was conspicuously absent from the Chelios
Mhm.
Patrick Kane night. What was that, like a year and a half ago? And because Campbell works for the Hawks, but all the Versteeg, I believe, was back. Seabrook was there, Hossa was there, Jalmerson was there, Sharpie was there. So like they brought in all like the core guys from that run for that night, and Taves was not there. So you're just like, oh, what's going on with this guy? And then he pops up and he's on some healing journey in India. And so maybe it worked for him. I don't know what he was doing there, but so to see him go back to Winnipeg, I think that makes a lot of sense for him, because they're a very good team, but
Mhm.
he's never been able to be just one of the guys, probably since he was 16, so whether it was at Shattuck St. Mary's or North Dakota, certainly the Blackhawks, he's always had like that burden of, I got to be the best player, I got to be the leader, Team Canada, he's always had the C on his chest, for the vast majority of his career. Now he can come in and, there's certainly potential if he's healthy and good, and maybe he does become their number 2 center. But if he has more of like a Joe Thornton at the end role, where he can
Mhm.
help you on the power play and the penalty kill and win important faceoffs, well, that can help that team win, and that's a good team. So I hope it. I'll be rooting for him. Like the Hawks are so bad that I do like. It's sacrilegious to say, but I watch a lot of Red Wings just because I love watching Patrick Kane, and I want. I think it's good for the league when the Wings are good too. So like I was hoping the
Yeah.
Wings would make the playoffs last year, and I could see Patrick Kane in the playoffs, and I'll be doing the same thing with Taves. Taves probably has a better shot at making the playoffs with Winnipeg than Kane
Mhm.
does in Detroit. But I'm glad that they're, those are like the last two guys still standing from that run. So I hope that they're able to, you know, give it a good go and finish their careers the way they wanted. Because certainly I hated the way the organization treated them on the way out. And so now I'm
Yeah.
glad that Johnny can kind of end his career on what he feels like are his terms.
You feel like the trade for Kane or with Kane was handled poorly as well?
To the Rangers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they were when Davidson took over, they had 1 year left on their deal,
Yeah.
and I always reference this, but they both gave interviews individually with Pat Boyle, who's like, I love Pat Boyle. I do a show on ESPN Radio with him in Chicago during the season, but he's like the studio host for our pre and post game in Chicago, and that was like late January, and neither one of them had been spoken to about their future with the Blackhawks. So it's like these guys who have given
Mm.
you the golden era, the best era in the history of the Blackhawks, and they've given everything for this organization, and they're kind of twisting in the wind. And they go to Kane like a couple weeks before the deadline, and it's like, we're not re-signing you. And it's like, okay, well, I guess try to trade me to the Rangers. That was the only team he wanted to go to. So, because it was either like, I'm going to shut down, because he had the hip problem. I'm either going to shut down my
Mhm.
hip and, try to come back for the beginning of next year with the Hawks, or I'll just, I'll try to gut out, because he had an incredible February. It's 7 goals in like 4 games in February, right before the deadline. And so he goes to the Rangers, but it was like uh, they never offered him or never asked him if he was interested in coming back. They didn't give him time really to prepare. It was so, and then the same thing with Johnny. Like, there wasn't a lot of interest in Johnny because of all those health stuff
Yep.
at that deadline. So then it was like, I think they told him like 2 days before the last home game, like, this is your last home game. Like, we're not re-signing you. I just don't think that's the right way to handle the two guys that you should be building statues for, that saved hockey in this city. Hockey was dead, and they brought it back. And so I didn't like the way that was handled, certainly.
Yeah, no, I think from a lot of fan perspective, it was handled poorly, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just wanted your opinion because you're right in there with Chicago, of course.
Yeah.
Who do you figure is the most underappreciated player from that dynasty era?
I think the easy answer to that is Jalmerson. Um,
Okay.
he was such a stud defenseman. Like, they don't win without him.
Yeah.
So he was always like that. A lot of, and I would put Oduya too. Johnny Oduya was an absolute horse, and like especially that 15 year where they didn't have much depth on defense, and then they had Michael Roosevelt and Trevor Van Riemsdyk as like a college free agent rookie. They both got hurt, so they really that for the I think for the last 2.5 rounds, they essentially just rolled 4 defensemen. So is Duncan Keith, obviously one of the greatest defensemen ever. He won the Conn Smythe that year, but he was averaging over 30 minutes a night, which is just insane.
Yeah,
That's
that's
insane. So,
absurd.
and then the other 3, Seabrook, Chalmerson, and Oduya, are right behind him. And Chalmerson just eats, he would eat pucks with his rib cage, and he was so fearless. And there's a great clip of Brad Marchand on Chicklets. This is probably like 3 or 4 years ago, being like, who's the best defenseman? He's like, well, best defensive defenseman. This is when he was with the Coyotes, is Chalmerson. And he really was. Like, he was like your quintessential throwback, shut down defenseman. And so then they would put Keith and Chalmerson together. And it's like, good luck. Like, I don't care if it's Stamkos or Kucherov or, the Getzlov and Perry. Like, we're throwing our guys against your top guys, and we're going to win. And it was, those 2 guys were machines. So I would say the most underrated is probably Chalmerson, but there's so many. Like, Dave Bolin had huge moments. He meant so much to those teams. Versteeg had great moments. Like, Brian
Hmm.
Bickle in the playoffs always turned into an absolute animal. Like, he'd have like 10 goals in 82 games, and then he would have 10 goals in 20 games in the play, in the
Yeah.
playoffs. So it was just like a light switch would turn on for him. But that was the thing. They had so many great players. And that's, it's not a surprise that they won 3 because their depth was so strong. And Joel deserves a ton of
Mhm.
credit. Corey Crawford too. He had
Yep.
one bad game against Boston, which they won in the Stanley Cup final. They won a game 6-5, and he had a rough night, but they won. And then everyone's just like, oh, he's the weak link. It's not true. Like he was a top 10 goalie for the majority of his career. So Corey Crawford as well.
What would you have given physically or emotionally to see one more run with Kane and Taves?
I would have given. Well, that was always the thing, right? Like if you really go back, everything ended because Stan Bowman mismanaged the summer of 15, where they
Yeah.
had Brandon Saad's deal was up and he was an RFA. And Stan was like, he was worried about an offer sheet. So they flipped him to Columbus for Anisimov, and then they signed Anisimov to a big 5-year deal immediately. And then for like a prospect who never made it. And then they ended up flipping Sharp for Trevor Daley and another guy. I can't remember the other guy. Obviously didn't do anything. But if they had just been like, you know what? Our core is so good. Our core is so important. We will find another Brandon Saad somehow, a guy to play that role.
Yeah.
You let him walk to an offer sheet. You probably would have gotten at least 2 first-round picks based on the compensation because he got $6 million a year. So I think back then that was worth 2 first-round picks. That would have been, and then the following year, that would have given you enough money to keep Sharp because you're not paying Anisimov and Trevor Daley. Your left wings would have been Patrick Sharp and Artemi Panarin. And would that group have been good enough to win it all? Maybe not. But so you have like a couple of a down year as you're bringing along all these other prospects that they got rid of. Philip Deneau was here. They gave him away for basically nothing. Ryan Hartman, they told everybody he was too slow. He's had a great career since leaving Chicago. There's Trevor Van Riemsdyk. They've had so many like really like that next generation of like secondary players. They had them, and they just didn't know what they had, and they gave it away. So I would have given anything, but that's why people gave me a hard time because I was on board with the Seth Jones trade. Like I had no like dreams of Seth Jones being the last piece of the puzzle to win a cup. I thought it was possible that Seth Jones was good enough with the other core guys. Obviously, it was Jeremy Colleton was a coach. The whole thing was a nightmare. But it was like, maybe he can get us like one more playoff run.
Mhm.
And so I don't care about what happens after Taves and Kane. I don't care. Like, let's just
No.
try to max out, have meaningful hockey, get those guys in the playoffs again. Let's have some more good memories, even if you don't, you're not going to win the cup, but you could be playing good hockey, and then we'll figure out a rebuild. There's always everyone, when people are the whole Bedard, oh, you wouldn't have won the lottery. I don't care. There's always some kid coming, it's like now it's Gavin McKenna is the next, greatest thing.
Yep.
And so when guys like Taves and Kane don't come along very often, rebuilds happen all the time. So even if if we're starting the rebuild now in 2025, again, I'm making things up, but it's like, is that much different than starting it in 2022? Like, I don't think so. So, they just bungled everything from 15 on, and it just, so I would have loved to see those guys playing meaningful hockey instead of the way, we went out with a whimper, which is sad. And people like to bag on the Penguins now, but like, I would have rather done that. Like, I know it didn't work
Mhm.
out and it's not working out, but they still they went to game 7 against the Rangers in Madison Square Garden a couple of years ago. I was there. I went to the game. So to have Sidney Crosby and Malkin in game 7 in the first round, I would have signed up for that. Like give me
Yeah.
a series against somebody in the, Taves and Kane in the first round against somebody in the West. Like that would have been great in 2021 or 2022. They couldn't. They're idiots.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's okay. We're in the post era now of Kane and
hmm
Taves. What have you made of Connor Bedard over the last 2 seasons?
I think he is a hyper talented kid. Like, he's got the
Mhm.
shot. He's got great edges. He finds space. Um, but there's a lot to be desired there. Like people go insane for whatever reason on the internet when you criticize Connor Bedard, but he's got a lot of work to do. He's not really great on the wall. He's great with the puck on his stick, but he's not super fast. He's not big. He's not going to get much faster. He's not going to get much bigger. Like he'll fill out and have more of a man body. But when he was hyped as, Crosby, McDavid, Bedard, like that was the people that he was being compared to coming out. He's not that. And he's not going to turn
Mm.
into that. Like he might be an all-star for 10 years, but he's got a ways to go to reach that level too. But I don't think he's going to be a guy who, with the C on his chest and leading the league in scoring and having Gary Bettman hand him the Stanley Cup. That seems pretty far-fetched to me. He could be a very good piece on a winning team, but I don't see him as like a guy who's going to drive you and lead you to a cup. I think he's going to be like an 80 to 90 point guy, and which that's awesome. I don't think that's like a
Yeah.
slight. Like that's really, really good, but he's not like that generational superstar that I think we all were hoping he was. And I hope he
I think
proves
that's
me. I hope he proves me wrong. Maybe there will be some material change where he turns into this like unbelievable generational guy. I haven't seen any evidence of that yet.
yeah, and I think that's more than fair from your standpoint. You watch them day in and day out and get
Mhm.
to see every game. Um, what do you how do you feel Kyle Davidson is handling this kind of rebuild and going about this? Do you feel he's putting the right pieces around Bedard, or could there be some better roster management?
I don't know is the answer. I don't think anybody
Yeah.
really knows. So we're still somehow we are still at the beginning stages of this. And so it really depends on like everything. They haven't really done anything with the roster except for accumulate picks and prospects. So
Yeah.
Davidson will be judged probably in 3 years, right? Like we need to see, is Rinzel like a top defenseman? Is Levshinov a top guy? Frank Nazar, Sasha Bover, like they have a lot of guys who they're just not even in the NHL yet. And then
Yeah.
there's a collection like Frank Nazar, Renzel, Levshinov, and Oliver Moore all kind of finished the year in Chicago. And they show these flashes, and you're like, okay, like these guys look really good. And I loved the Spencer Knight return on the Seth Jones trade plus a first. Like I thought that was a great trade. And but it's like I can't sit here and be like he's doing a great job. I also don't
Yeah.
get the people who are like he's doing a horrible job. We don't know yet.
Right.
We got to see what these kids become, and if a good chunk of these prospects flop, well then he's got to be fired. Like that's really all there is to it. So it's like you're putting all your trust in that group, and I like the Blashill hire. I hope all that works out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know if he's a good GM or not. And I think the Renzel thing looks good. I like Levshinov, but we'll find out.
What did you make of the 2025 draft class?
Um,
It's early, of course.
yeah, I think Frondell fits a need because
Yeah.
it's all the reports are that he's a two-way guy and he's got an absolute bomb of a shot. And it's like we'll see if he's a wing or a center. Hopefully he's a center because they don't. That's something that I don't think Connor Bedard's a center. I don't know that center is going to be Frank Nazar's best position either. So if those guys
Mhm.
aren't centers, then you don't really have any, which is a big problem. So and like that's the other thing I always say to people, where it's like if you look who's won the Stanley Cup don't know, the last 20 years. There's a lot of similarities between those teams. They're big down the middle, they're fast, they got good defensemen, and they got great goaltending. And the Hawks have speed. They don't have any of the other things. And so they this draft, they definitely went for some big boys. And Frondell's a big boy, and Mason West, big boy, good athlete. Sounds like he's like on that Renzel kind of timeline where this is like maybe he'll end up being great. And you get like a real steal, but it does feel like a little bit of a boomer bust type of thing. He's playing high school football in the fall.
Yes.
Then he's going to the USHL. Then he's going to college. So like we won't know about Mason West until
2 years.
I mean, we might not know if he's a good NHL player until 2030, realistically, because he's not even going to college for 2 years. So, yeah, it's like this is the thing, like the Davidson timeline. It's like this is going on forever. So, talk about
100%.
job security. Well done, Kyle, because it's like, wait, we just got to wait for our next crop of prospects, and they're gonna have another top 5 pick this year.
Yeah, and that's another thing to look forward to, of course. I also work for the Kamloops Blazers, and you guys drafted Nathan Bame, who went 66th overall.
Tell me about him.
I will. Yeah. So he's a fantastic. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He plays physical. He reminds me a lot of Jamie Benn. Got an excellent shot. Like, I mean, this is an NHL caliber release. It's on par with Bedard. Like, maybe. It's lethal. 31 goals last year. He can probably get 40 this year in the WHL. But just yes. So beginning of the year, it was troublesome. But over the last handful of months, it got much better.
Okay.
So there's definitely a big improvement. And yeah, I mean, I even talked to an NHL Central Division scout, and he agreed that Ben is likely the comparable. You can, with him, there's games where he shows up big, and then games like with Jamie Benn where just he's not really all there. There's a little bit of consistency, but fantastic shooter. And I think somebody that could be a little like I had Craig Button on from TSN, and he said that he believes Bame could very well be a player that is like you look in 5 years and go, how did he get selected there?
That'd be incredible. And like that's going to be the thing. Like when we talked about the glory years, you had like Brian Pickle was a later pick. Troy Brouwer was a later pick. Dave Bolin was a 2nd round pick. Like they had Marcus Kruger was a 4th round pick. Like you have to be able to find these guys later in the draft. So like another prospect a lot of people are excited about with Chicago is Nick Lardis, who just scored a billion. Yes. He scored a billion goals in the OHL. Is that going to translate? We'll find out. But like the production and the traits are certainly there, but they need some of these guys to these later picks to pop for this rebuild to actually work. And it's like I like Wyatt Kaiser. He was a later pick. Like Vlasic was a 2nd round pick, and he's a good NHL defenseman. So it's like I hope, like talk to me about Nathan Bame. That's his name.
Yeah.
Like I love hearing that. I hope that worked because that's the type of profile of player that they need too. Some guys with some size and some ability to have some secondary scoring.
Well, Chief, let me get your opinion here for a sec. What do you think about Kevin Korchinski, since we're on the topic of defensemen? Because his name's been thrown around for a while now here in trade rumors. What do you make of that?
I'm not the biggest Korchinski fan. He's a good skater, good offensive skills. The guy that I always compare him to is Eric Gustafson, who had a couple different stints. What's that?
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, and nothing against Korchinski, but I hate Eric Gustafson. So to me, he's like there's a reason why everyone's like, yeah, we'll get him at the deadline. He's played for like 10 teams in 7 years or whatever it is. And it's because he does have these great offensive traits, but you can't trust him out there defensively at all. And for the Blackhawks rebuild specifically, the reason I kind of want to trade Korchinski at this point, because I don't feel like his value is going to necessarily go up, because there's just not a lot of opportunity there. And they've drafted Rinzel and Levshinov, who can, maybe Korchinski has a higher ceiling offensively than those two, but also maybe not. And those two can certainly quarterback a power play well enough. So then it's like, all right, well, if you have guys who can do your PP1 and PP2, where is Korchinski providing value? Because he's still going to be in your third pair and needing sheltered minutes, but without having the opportunity to showcase and help you win with what he does best. So he's almost like a surplus of goods to me at this point, where it's like, can you package him and send him to a different team who needs that profile player, and maybe they have something that we don't. And so I would have explored that. I wish there was, more moving and shaking around the draft, and because having picks and prospects is great, but eventually you have to build a roster and view it through that prism. And I just feel like the Blackhawks we haven't seen that yet. And maybe it is just like the profile player that they've drafted has changed, because the first couple was like all speed, all skill. And then now it feels like, all right, we got to get some hammers in here. So they've drafted some bigger boys. But even their big defensemen, like all their defensemen are big. I haven't seen any of them be mean. And it's like, so you do need that too. So, and maybe that's something that, as they grow and develop and they're in these kind of high intensity situations, that it comes out of them. Like I couldn't tell you, but we haven't seen it yet. So maybe they have it and they just haven't had an opportunity to show that yet. And especially for the guys like Rinzel and Levshinov, who are like coming from college, like, it's just a different style of game. And Levshinov he'll bang bodies a little bit, but it almost feels like he does it by accident. And guys, he's already got like a man body, so people kind of bounce off of him. So we'll see. But they gotta have some. They got some scalpels, but they gotta have some hammers too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the topic of Korchinski, I think they just rushed him a little bit. Like, I saw him when he played with Seattle during the Memorial Cup, and I covered the Memorial Cup for Daily Faceoff, watched him, and he was good.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think he was good enough to make that leap to the NHL right away, right? So I don't know if that kind of did it, but yeah.
I think they didn't really have any options. I felt like he was probably too good for the WHL at that point. So like, what's he going to do with that? But then he wasn't eligible for Rockford.
Yeah.
If he was drafted today in 2025, he would have maybe done that one extra year, because he did one more year in the WHL, right? After he got drafted.
After he got drafted, yep.
After he got drafted, one more year in the WHL, and it's like, what do we do with this kid? Well, what you would do with him now is send him to Michigan State, or you send him to Penn State, and let him play against 24-year-olds and hit the weight room 3 days a week, 4 days a week, and really develop that way. But the rules were different just 2 years ago, and that wasn't an option. So it was either back where you're already like too dominant. And I do think there's a way where it's like you can't develop, or you backslide or create bad habits if you're just like so used to the level of competition that's like kind of easy for you. So I don't know what they could have done differently with him, but clearly that was not like there was just no good option for his development at that juncture. Right now, he would have been playing in Big Ten hockey in the States and probably making a nice chunk of money for doing it. And then he would have been probably more prepared for the pro game, but it's just, there were no good options at that juncture.
Are you a big college hockey guy?
Depends on how you define big. I love college hockey. I grew up on that. And then when I was at prep school, that was the lockout year of the NHL, 04-05. So and I was in New England. So we got the Hockey East games were always on TV. You would get and then here, I watch a lot of Big Ten Network because I love hockey, but I go through these waves where I'm like, I can't watch the Blackhawks right now. So I'll put on Penn State against Michigan,
Mhm.
and and just because I just love the atmosphere. I really like college hockey, but if you're like, oh, who's the coach of whoever, like I'm probably not going to be able to help you there.
No, I just was curious what you thought of Gavin McKenna going to Penn State and just that whole
It's very interesting.
rule change.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting. And, shout out Terry Pagula, the owner of the Sabres. He's finally
Yep.
going to have a good hockey team. It's just going to be Penn State. It's not going to be the Sabres. So yeah, I'm very excited to see him at that level of competition. Like, I think the Big Ten is an awesome league, and it has a particular style. So I think it's a good move for McKenna. I think he's going to have a lot of fun at Penn State. I think he's going to put up a lot of points. And I think, excuse me, I think this new format is going to be, I think it'll be good for the top end players. I don't know if it's going to be good for, the CHL or NCAA or how it's all going to work out, but I think it's going to be very good for like the big time guys. And good for
It's a
it'll be
neat
good for the
pathway.
fans too. It'll be good for the fans because I will be locked in. I'll be watching a lot of Penn State hockey this year on the Big Ten Network, where
Oh
I
yeah.
would, and I would catch games here or there, but I will make it a point to watch Penn State now in a way that I never would have.
Yeah, me as well. I mean, I'm a big CHL guy, obviously
Mm-hmm.
work in the WHL, but
Yeah.
I think the move is kind of cool. I think it gives players a choice now. It
Mm-hmm.
it allows for some more freedom for the players, other developmental paths. I think as a fan, it's going to be a fun thing to watch. It's just we're not going to know the outcomes of this for a few years, really.
Yeah. Do Canadians pay attention to college hockey or no? Like, are you
Uh
guys watching the
I
Frozen
would
Four? Or?
I would say a lot aren't.
Okay.
I would say a lot aren't, but I mean, this year I made a point of watching it because I was interested in watching Penn State
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what they were all about. Like we host a show here on Daily Face Off called Morning Cup of Hockey. I believe you've been
Yep.
on it before,
Mm-hmm.
and like
With
Guy
Johnny and Cole,
Gadowski's.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, Johnny and Colby. And so Guy Gadowski has gone on it, and I loved the interview, so I just made a point of watching it. But I'm a big hockey nerd. I'll
Yeah.
watch all types of hockey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think for the average Canadian, no,
Okay.
but more people are into the CHL.
Yeah, that's fair. It's what you grow up with, like
Yeah,
it's different everywhere.
yeah, for sure. A couple more questions, and I'll let you go.
Okay.
W- how far away are the Hawks from a legitimate playoff run? Like 2030?
I would really hope it's before that.
Yeah,
It is currently 2025, so they're not going to make it in 26. Earliest would be 27.
yeah.
I
Okay.
think 28 is probably realistic.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
What type of AAV would you be willing to give Bedard?
that's a tough question. That is a really tough because he just hasn't shown enough to get a big number. So,
Hmm.
like, what did Matthew Nyes sign for?
Well, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Let me see if I can pull it up. Because to me, Matthew Nyes, he's a different profile of
6 years,
player.
46.5 million, so 7.75 AAV.
So cap's going up. The Hawks have a gazillion dollars in cap space. This is such a big year for Bedard because like he hasn't been a point per game guy yet, and not that Nyes is either, but Nyes is so big and so fast, and he's scored. He's had playoff moments that, and power forwards just don't grow on trees. And I'm not saying guys like Bedard grow on trees either because they don't. Like he is a unique type of talent. I would probably offer him. I would probably start by offering him 8x8, and I'm sure he and his agent would turn that down. But
Hmm.
it's a really because 8x8, you would hope if he does something like that, or 8x9, you would hope that with the cap going up, the way it's projected to, that when they are making that run in 2028, maybe that's like one of the better contracts in the league. But if I'm Bedard, I would probably only take a 4-year deal if I was Bedard, and then just be like, all right, now hopefully in an ideal world, he establishes himself as like, I'm a 100-point guy,
Mhm.
and now give me 14 million. Like that could be
Yes.
but he's nowhere close to that now. Like now it's like he's like better than like a Marco Rossi, So it's like it's like this is a huge year for him. Like he has to take a big step, and if he wants like that type of a payday, because if he's not like an all-star guy, like a stud superstar, this whole thing is going nowhere. Like it's so much of it is contingent upon him being a star, and so I don't know. If I were the Hawks, I would have said we'll give you 8x8 right now, like before your third year, and I don't think that they were even talking. So I feel like Nazar was so dominant down the stretch and was so good at the Worlds. I think Nazar will get over $7 million a year, and they're kind of up at the same time. So if you give Nazar 7.5, 8x7.5, and you give Bedard 8x9,
Mm-hmm.
like, is that enough? But that might be like by the market standards, that might be an overpay for Bedard based on his production. You're kind of betting
Right.
that he will really come good.
Yeah. I think you look at what Logan Stankoven just signed, which was 8 years, 6 million times 8 years, and so 48 million. And
Yeah.
you think about like a contract like that and how he has impacted Carolina already.
Yeah.
But I think for Bedard, like, yeah, it's a big year for him this year to just really get out and prove himself.
Yeah. I kind of want to see what the other kid got too. What's his face? The other Dallas kid. It's been a long weekend.
Johnston.
Yeah. So he got 8.4.
Yeah.
So, and he took a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
That feels like the right kind of number for him.
It does.
For Bedard, like give him 8.5 by 4 years, or 4
Yeah,
or
let
5-year
him.
deal.
He can take the gamble on himself
Yeah.
as well in that
Yeah.
sense, is right.
Yeah.
And then once you get out of that 4 years, then yeah, there you go. If you're proved it, then 14 million, 16 million, whatever,
Right.
you'll get it. So
Because
I
he'd
think that's
still be
fair.
what if he signed? Because he's going to be 21, so he'd be 26 at the end of a 5-year deal.
Yeah.
So, you're still entering your prime, so to speak.
100%.
Yeah.
Last one from me. What has kind of been your favorite? What was your favorite blog to write? Did you have a favorite one?
Man, I don't know, because there's so many. Like, I used to love. So I would watch the games until they ended, and kind of take little notes back when they were good and on their cup runs. And I would get up at 4 a.m. and write like these long blogs. And I love history, so I'd weave little like history quotes and themes and stuff into it. So I used to really love doing that, but we haven't done that. I'm really more of like a podcast host now,
Yeah.
I guess, than a blogger.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved having that conversation with Patrick Kane.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably my favorite hockey interview we've ever done. My favorite part from like the hockey aspect of this job is just that it's allowed me access kind of off the record to players, agents, coaches, scouts, front office people, like a lot of people who are way smarter than me. And you can ask a bunch of people the same question, from different organizations. And then you kind of combine that with your own eyes, and you kind of can form your own opinion, but it's like it's an informed opinion, as opposed to like, yeah, like I played hockey, most of my life, but I don't know as much as, these guys that live, breathe it every single day and played at, at the highest level. So like, I feel like I've gotten to learn so much, and that from a hockey aspect, that's been one of my good friends is a coach for the Vegas Golden Knights. When I or like if I have a question about something or a clip, I'll send a clip to Joel Quenville and I'll get I'll get a response. And it's like having access to that level of like the arguably the greatest coach of all time, like that's so invaluable. And there are times where I'd be like so angry last year at things that the Hawks were doing or Bedard was doing. And it would be like, he'll be all right, from different people who I respect. So it's like this kind of, that's like the best thing for me. I don't really have a favorite blog, but it's been, or even a favorite moment or anything, but it's been a great like learning experience in many different ways.
Uh, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you're the best, man. Thank you so much for
Thanks
joining
for
us.
having me. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah, of course. We'll have to do it again once the
For
Blackhawks
sure.
kind of season gets rolling, and we'll get talking more if
You'll
that
see a
works for
much
you.
more depressed, angry version of myself. And this is summertime version of me, which is a little bit more mellow.
There you go.
Yeah.
What do you guys have planned over on your podcast? You want to kind of tell our viewers what's kind of coming?
Yeah, I mean, we just had Patrick Kane on Friday, so that he hasn't really done any long form interviews really ever.
No.
So that was a very unique experience. It feels like it's been pretty well received, that interview. So I was proud of
Yeah.
how that came out. But we have the stretch, which we do with Big Cat, who's obviously like one of the titans of sports media now. So we're on with him every Monday. Then we kind of do like an interview of a Chicago guy on Friday, and then we have the dog walk, which is I never know from day to day what that show's going to be about, which I love. Sometimes it's like politics, sometimes it's silly interviews. Then we have the drafts where we draft, I don't know, country music or what, like all kinds of different things. We just kind of debate and argue. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Again, thank you so much for joining me, man, and enjoy your day.
Yeah, thanks. Same to you.
Well, there we go, guys. That was Barstool Chief. I really appreciated him joining today. I've probably like a lot of you guys, I've been around watching Barstool for years and watching these guys, and they're pioneers of sports media. Um, just a couple things to get to here before we end the show. The NHL schedule dropped obviously today, so we got the Blackhawks and Panthers, which we should have asked Chief about. But we got the Blackhawks and Panthers. We got the Pens and the Rangers. So you've got Mike Sullivan versus Dan Muse. And then you got the Avs versus the Los Angeles Kings. So some fun opening night stuff. That all happens on October 7th. That's when the home openers are. Uh, some other news. I have to go to my phone for this because I saw it. Uh, Jan Kucharik, who is a defenseman, uh, a centerman who was drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. He has chosen to go to the Youngstown Phantoms of the United States Hockey League rather than go play for the Owen Sound Attack of the OHL. So an interesting move, benefits the USHL, of course, because the USHL is losing a handful of players. I believe it was 2 days ago it was announced that JP Hurlburt is leaving the United States National Development Program, and he is going to come and play for the Kamloops Blazers. So one of the top scorers out of the U17s there. So he's going to leave the USHL as well. So there's a lot of kind of movement going on, but good for the USHL to land Pacharik. I think that's an important one, of course, to have him. And you this for the USHL, it's a pretty big year for them. Like we had Glenn Heffernan on, and he talked a lot about how the recruiting style hasn't really changed too much, but it's still it's a big year. And Dayton and I are also going to be going to the USHL Fall Classic here in September. That is in Pittsburgh, so we will be there doing live interviews and live shows from the arena down there. It's not hosted at the PPG Paints Arena. I think that's what it's called. It's not hosted there. It's hosted at a different rink, but I think it'll be fun. This week, I'm trying to think who we have tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm not too sure who's on the show, but I know for Wednesday we have a fun one. We have Brantford Bulldogs owner, or part owner, Spencer Hyman. So Zach Hyman's brother. He is going to be joining us on Wednesday to discuss the Brantford Bulldogs, the ownership and just how things are going there. So looking forward to that. On Thursday, I believe we have Hot Take Hockey coming on. Popular YouTuber. A lot of people know him. He's got his own channel. So he's going to join us Thursday. We'll kind of dive into a bit of everything with him, off-season stuff, free agency, just what's kind of been going on around the league. But that about does us for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And tomorrow, 11 Eastern or 11 Pacific, 2 Eastern, GDT Live returns, and we will see you all then.